What's your dream, Gavin?
I just wanted to go see the world. Not necessarily America, I just wanted sort of adventure. I was looking at jobs in bars. They're like, do you know how to make a cocktail? And I'd be like, yeah. And they come back and like, I didn't. So I couldn't get a job at a bar, which I was like, what am I gonna do? I got this call from my friend. They were like, any chance you can just fill in as a babysitter tomorrow? So she hired me and then after a while became a producer.
How do you go from no experience as a producer to starting as a receptionist to then producing big projects and getting into the fold? All right, we're here with Gavin Carroll, Warner Chappell Music, VP of Creative Licensing. So we're excited to talk to Gavin. He's here to give us all things music publishing, but then also, of course, talk about his journey and how we got to the position that he's in today. Ladies and gentlemen, Gavin Carroll. What's up, man?
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Dude, first of all, thank you for jumping in here and doing this on such short notice. It's been a crazy week for me here. We've been shooting kind of the last few episodes of the season. So, man, season 1, you're here. Avail yourself to come and speak to us and just kind of talk about your journey in media, which is music publishing. So, First, give me your title, tell me what you do, and just unpack that for people listening.
Sure, yeah. So, as you said, my title is Vice President, Creative Licensing at Warner Chappell Music.
Yeah.
Warner Chappell is part of Warner Music Group. It's Warner Music Group's publishing arm. I feel like, the way to kind of simplify it most is to, so specifically my job is part of the sync department.
Right.
And ultimately our job is to find opportunities for our artists and the rights that Warner Chappell Music, controls. This can be with advertising, but it can be with TV, it can be with movie trailers, it can be with radio, but it's really kind of like any type of content that requires music requires a sync license. And so Warner Chappell and Warner Music Group being one of the largest of its kind, we tend to kind of like cater to all sorts of media types.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So now, does your day-to-day involve dealing with artists directly?
So I'd say like it's funny, like maybe to kind of like backtrack on that, like to kind of come into that, like it can and it does, like you're working at a music company, so obviously like you're kind of surrounded by people coming and going, and in fact many of the people I work with are artists in their own right, and it's no coincidence that they ended up in the music industry because their passion is to to support artists, and art and music specifically. So all the time, and then in a more kind of like specific way, there's the artists who are part of the Warner Music Group and specifically Warner Chappell repertoire, and then within that, then there's tons of kind of like subsections and specialties, and like there's for example, one thing which I always find kind of like interesting is like news music, for example. Like if you're watching, local news or CNN or Fox News or whatever, there's dan 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 and all that. There's people who that's a whole genre, like a subgenre of music, and that there's writers and there's not only people who composers who write for that specifically and are like known within that world as the best in that genre, but there's also people who don't work in news media and don't purchase that music, who just follow that type of music as a kind of it's a weird subsection of what people listen to as well. Granted, probably relatively small, but it's there and
for personal consumption.
Yeah, it's like kind of like a little bit like the way people collect sort of unusual things. What I mean? Like so, there's like news music, has been around as long as the news, obviously.
Right.
So like there's like for example, if there's a news music that might be currently on a news channel, might be a throwback to the same one they had maybe in like 1980 or something like that, because it references that same channel's overall theme and stuff like that. If your question is like, do we interact with artists? Like it's like a lot on every level and all types of artists, and I would say though, and that's kind of what it's all about. If you're working at if you walk into Warner Music Group, and especially when you walk into Warner Chappell, right there on the wall, is kind of like, it's all about the artists, and it reminds you every day that that's what we're here for, is to support our artists. Me specifically, like it's interesting, like my background is not music. I'm probably a bit more unusual within the music industry. My background is actually production, like kind of that side. And I've been in the music industry now for like 7 or 8 years, so I kind of, it's sort of hard to say which is the background, but it's just sort of like, given that a lot of people who work within the walls and a lot of people we interact with are artists, it's just like, it's artists like it's art as a passion, it's something that that's like whereas business can also be a passion, but it's a music business. So it's like there's also a lot of people within the music industry who are not artists too, you know what I mean? Or like, at least in their function, right, sure, that aren't artists,
Like a traditional musician or
singer, or like
songwriter.
an accountant, sure, who was an artist. And I mean, I think in my particular case, like, so I'm more involved in the business development side of it, which is interesting, because I think when I moved to the music industry, maybe when I first came over to the music industry like 7 or 8 years ago, I was so pumped to be like, oh my God, I can't believe I work in music, and I'm coming from like a production role and on TV commercials, which was cool, but not really it's not music, right. Getting to work at like a label, like a major music company. I think like initially I think I would describe myself as someone who is an artist, but maybe like it takes so much guts and circumstance and, true, a leap of it. And so like, it depends. Like, it's kind of like an interesting thing to say, like, we're all artists, right. But like the real ones are the ones who are like doing it for a living, Yeah. And so like,
we're trying to do it for a living, yeah, by having opportunities in sync.
Yeah. Or at least like, I think like one way of putting it is that, accepting the reality that it might be a tough living, because I mean, most artists don't get like a ton of like, that's what makes you an artist, I think.
Yeah, it's a grind for sure.
You're doing it you're not doing it for the money, although you hope that you get money. You're doing it because you have to, I guess. But like but within that, like for me personally, like initially when I started working in the music industry, I was so excited to be able to people were sending me music all the time, and suddenly, like, I remember when I was a kid, I used to I'd be that as a CD era, so I was like, everyone had those zip up kind of sleeves with tons of like CDs, and I would be over your house going like, that's crap, and people be like, why are you, like, who do you think you are, but then suddenly, you're currently in this position where you're kind of, people are sending you stuff. What do you think of my music? And you're like, what the? And so it's really cool. That's a good feeling. And I remember when I started, I was at BMG before I came to Warner Music. It was cool. I listened to everything, and would give feedback. I took it very seriously, because these are people who are brave enough to actually send it to you and create it and all that kind of stuff. So, but like, I mean, I can remember one particular instance where, I mean, I'll never, like, one particular person whose music was like, thing is, I think what happens is when you start in a job in a music company, anyone who works in the music industry, or really any job you're in, yeah, the people who are kind of pitching to you, be it like the music people are essentially, the musicians are essentially trying to sell their work to you or get you to notice your work. So you're gonna, in a new job, you're gonna get a deluge of people like, so once you, like, depending on how you act, then you'll either keep getting these or people will stop sending them to you, because so in my case though, there was one particular person who I won't name, but if he ever comes across this, he'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And his music's, oh god, he's an artist and he's great, and I just loved it. And he had an album he'd produced for somebody, all unsigned. I'm not sure if it is now, but I was like, yeah, that's so good, and I kind of, mentor is too far, but like, I felt his passion and I took on his passion, and I was like, I'm gonna make this come true. I'm gonna help you make this come true. But it's hard to say like what it didn't come true, and it's hard to say exactly why. perhaps if it was now, I'd have the tool. I was rather new in music industry and a bit more junior.
This
and all
is when
that
you were
kind
at
of
BMG.
Yeah, and it was like right away. I just started. I didn't even, I think you might think initially you're in the music industry. It's like it's it's all about like, and I think that it is probably what it is about for a lot of people. They get to be in that position, and that's and get to work with artists, and that's like the kind of like to come back around to that. And that is the most exciting part of it. And but with this particular person, for whatever reason, didn't work out. And I tried to send people his music, and then when it didn't work out, I just kind of like I think he was just trying to get signed to it. Like I just didn't really. I don't think I really had the knowledge or vocabulary or understanding of how the mechanisms worked. And so, but also, ultimately. The real fact is, when I started that job, and I'm sure we'll get into more my specific role, but my job wasn't A&R, and it isn't A&R. And so there's people who do that, and they are the experts at that, and they that's it. It's kind of like that is more than a full-time job, finding the artists and nurturing them and giving them what they need and convincing those around you that it's worth the investment and taking on their hopes and dreams and stuff like that. And this particular when it didn't work out, it was like a year, and I just I gotta stop, I had to stop. I was like, I can't, it's like I gotta stop. And he was like, come on, this is really good. Like, he was a young guy, and I was like, I can't. So heartbreaking. So
because you've invested so much emotionally into it, and music is such a connector of emotions. So you obviously connected with this person's music. So in your heart of hearts, you're like, this needs to reach the world. Meanwhile, you can't make that happen on your own. There's other people that have to be involved that make the final decisions on the budgets, et cetera, et cetera. So
exactly,
I get that connection.
And they have go ahead.
And I mean, it shows a lot about you and your heart, and obviously there's a connection there, and even you have a taste in music. So being able to express that and being in a position that is a creative position, I could see why you would be attached to wanting to make it happen for this particular artist. So, but back up though, because I do detect a bit of an accent. So I want to go all the way back to young Gavin coming up wherever you started. And how did you end up here? And I want to know your journey. I want to know about education. I want to know about how you arrived to where you're at today in that journey. Because you said you started out more in production in TV and doing commercials. Because I think that's relevant to what you do now. It gives you a different perspective from where you sit in your position, especially being in sync. So I just want to unpack that and kind of know, how you started and how you got here.
Thank you. I mean, I was always one of those kids, and still to a degree I'm one of those adults who this is just kind of doesn't really know, I don't have a very, this is definitely what I want to do. So I just try and kind of follow, I try and make every day good, and you know what I mean? That kind of a way. It's am I happy? Yeah, I'm happy. So that is good, because generally you are happy day to day, but it can mean a bit of lack of long-term planning. So, but I grew up in Ireland, in Dublin, and I think one thing I always had I have a great, wonderful family of two parents, of course, and but I say that because they're alive and kicking and they're brilliant, and I have and they're still in Ireland, and I have two sisters and a brother and a bunch of nieces and nephews, and I have two of my own kids here in America. But I always would have, despite having a great family and all that, I would have from a young age, I would have been I'm getting out of here. Nothing wrong with Ireland. I just wanted to go see the world. Not necessarily America. I just wanted sort of adventure, you know?
Right.
And so between the jigs and the reels, I ended up here and there, but I worked in Poland for a while teaching English.
Oh, wow.
Because ultimately, if you travel around Europe, anywhere, but at that time, and still now, I'm sure, having English as your first language, you can go and teach anywhere. I'm sure you can do it with other languages, but English is kind of...
Didn't require a teaching degree?
No, I didn't. No, well, you see, initially, I got a week. It's called, anyone who knows this will know, teach English as a foreign language. And it's you get it over a 2-day course,
Okay, got it.
And the thing is, you set your bar low. So the initial place that I went to, there was some job site back in the day, but it was a school in this place called Włocławek, which is 200 miles north of Warsaw in Poland, a small town. And this guy had the school, and he so you just need to be a native English speaker. And it is kind of funny because you're kind of like, how am I going to teach this? But ultimately, it is one of your best subjects, your native language. You know, if people can be like, what's the word for that? And you're like, glass. You know, I got this. You know, so it is. I probably wasn't the best teacher ever, but I did that in Poland for a while, and then once I had a little bit of experience, I was able to move to Paris and get a job there teaching English, where I stayed for 3 years. And then, I moved over to America as usual. It was an act of passion with someone at the time, and then that didn't work out. But when I came to America, I was very lucky. Like a lot of Irish people, I always had the thing that my dad, I remember when I was moving to America, and I think he had a feeling that this might be like I go back all the time, of course, but I think he was like, oh, like that for my parents' generation, but even it's true, it's far away, you know. So he was like, do something, like, follow your dream. He was giving me that kind of passionate talk. So I moved to LA, and I was like, I got to get a job in production. But in the meantime, I was looking at jobs in bars, like most Irish people, and I just would have assumed that I would walk into a bar in LA. I had a little bit of experience, not much, and I'd just be like, I'm Irish, hire me. But they were like, no, do you know how to make a cocktail? And I'd be like, yeah. And they'd come back, and like, I didn't know how to make any kind of cocktail, so I couldn't get a job at a bar, which I was like, what am I going to do? And I got a job as a receptionist at a production company because a friend of mine was babysitting for this lady, and she got a different job, and this lady was like, I need someone to babysit, get the kids tomorrow. And I had a brief 2-day job at a call center. So, I mean, I didn't even go through college, but like I went to a couple of colleges in Ireland, but fortunately college is relatively free in Ireland, so I didn't it's a luxury that, like, if I dropped out, I think, of 3 separate colleges in Ireland over the course of 3 years. If you did that in America, it'd be like, oh my, what is wrong with you? Even if you did it in Ireland, it's very suspect. But but that's what happened. So I had a brief job at a call center when I found on Craigslist, raising money for the DNCCC, the Democratic National Congressional Campaign Committee. And if you think I have an Irish accent now, when I just arrived, I mean, and so people were like, are you from Ireland? And so I remember I just couldn't follow the script. And it's funny because my job now, it's music industry, but it's like, it is a biz dev role, and there's a lot of kind of like, what is sales? Right. And I just think back at that job now, why didn't I just read the script? It would have been so easy, but I couldn't read that. I just get off, and the supervisor, and it's one of the, as far as I remember, and touch wood, it's one of the only times I've got fired from a job, but like it was like the first or second day, he was like a really nice guy, and he was just kind of like, you can do this job, you just got to follow that script. I'm going to be listening to your calls, you got to follow the script. And so I go in, of course, like I just get pulled off script. Where are you doing for the demo? Like, and I'm like, And so, and then the next day I came in, and it was like the call center. I went to log into my computer, my password didn't work, and I'm like, I'm like, oh, sorry, my password doesn't work. And he's like, step into my office, and I was like, oh wow, so they're nice. They paid me, and as I was leaving there, I got this call from my friend. They were like, any chance you can just fill in as a babysitter tomorrow for this person? I was like, yeah. And so I'd already met the person, so I picked up their kid from school and played football with them. She just happened to be just opened a post-production company, and she had a receptionist at the time, but I was babysitting her kids at that point, so I was kind of like, kid, you give me a job. So she did, and her name's Josie Ann Cote, and one of the, I call her my fairy job mother, and I've had a few, to be fair. Amazing. So she hired me, and then from there I became eventually after a while became a producer and a producing TV commercials, kind of like really cool stuff. Like, I mean, just so happened the company I worked at called Jump, they just worked on cool projects. Like they did this huge Rammstein documentary or music video, concert video called Made in Paris. That was epic. And they also met Paul McCartney, who came in for he did a live recording of Kisses on the Bottom, which is one of his later albums, and he'd come into the studio to do the edit, and like, because it was like the satellite studio of this other company, so I got to like show Paul McCartney around. It was awesome, and I have a credit of all things on that, even though I didn't do much except show him where the bathroom was, but I have a producer credit on this video. So anyways, after that,
okay, but hold on, back up, because you're skirting over something very important. How do you go from no experience as a producer to starting as a receptionist to then producing big projects and getting into the fold? What was it about you that allowed you to make that? Was it just because you babysitted the owner's kid and she had an affection for you because you played soccer with her kid? Or was there something about you that helped you get to those ranks? You can't just go from receptionist to like now producing spots.
Yeah, you know, that's a really good, really good question. And it's, I think like if anyone, you know, you mentioned earlier is something like someone who might be listening to this, anyone at any stage of your career, and just yesterday in a different situation, I was a similar situation, I was reminded of the same thing. Competence is the third part of the equation. First thing you need to be is nice, and the second, like you know, nice, which is not just like hello I'm nice, but like, you know, as in like, you know, do things like. The second part is trustworthiness. Like you got to be able to trust someone. So it's like a receptionist, I'm not saying it's an easy job, but like basically you got to show up and open up at like, you know, 8:30, and if you don't show up, it's kind of like, well, I don't really mind if you're, you know, not the, you know, so it's like sort of like, I think people, it's good to remember. So even now, right, and so I'm at a different part of my career now, but at each part of your career, you're talking up and down to people on different levels. There's always going to be someone above you. Like there's always going to be someone who's more senior to you, and there's going to be, unless you get really, I don't care who you are, there's always going to be someone who's quite a bit senior than you. And so same thing. I think there's like, I instinctively in an interaction, I got like, you know, you get 5 minutes with someone who you're like, oh my God. And you really try to prove you try to prove your competency in those 5 minutes by like, you know, like, there's this stuff I know, and like, let's talk about the thing. You got 5 minutes, just show them you're nice. Like the more important thing is that you're nice to work with. They assume you are competent. Like if you're a receptionist, what's your job? I mean, there's more to the job, but like basically answer the phone, show up. So if you can do that, that's all we're expecting from you. If you're the VP at a major music company, and this is sort of what I was reminded yesterday, is like, yeah, you don't need to, we assume you know what you're doing or you wouldn't be here, you know. The basic competencies of what that particular job is. So that it's just, I think that's a good lesson, that like, you know, there's the three things is benevolency, trustworthiness, and competency. It's in that order, not the opposite order. So you don't like, people like will accept it. You could even go as far to say that people like to answer your question, I was a terrible receptionist and I was a terrible post producer, and I wouldn't say terrible, but like the person who hired me, Josiane, like she sort of shot herself in the foot a little bit, because she was going to promote someone else. I'd been there about like 6 or 7 months in the front desk, getting people lunches and all that kind of stuff. And one day I noticed people were coming in. It was a very small company, and people were coming in for interviews with Josiane. And I was kind of like, And Josiane comes out to the front desk and is like, with this person, and she's like, this is Samantha, and Samantha's a lovely person as well. I'm sorry I did this happen though. I was like, okay, nice to meet you, Samantha. And I went to Josiane. I was like, Josiane, at the time I wasn't that young. Like I was like already like 26 or 27, you know what I mean? So like I was Josiane, like, you new junior producer? I mean, like your assistant, that's gotta be me. You gotta hire someone for the receptionist. Like I'm not being on reception. Like, you know what I mean? Like I was not ready to do that job, and she was like, okay, fair enough, you know, fair enough. And so she hired me, and like her and I are friends to this day, and she'll be like, yeah, I mean, you're a terrible hire. But it's funny because I work in like subsequently after I went from Jump, I was there like 3 or 4 years, and I went to another company called Arcade, which is really at the high end of that world, and working with like, you know. So
did this prepare you for that, you think? Did Jump prepare you for Arcade?
Yes.
Because you said you were terrible at that.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, and so, yeah, and I think that's exactly where I was going with that. Like, the thing is, I was a post-producer at Arcade. No, I became competent enough. Like, do you know what I mean? And I wasn't always nice. Not everyone would have thought I was nice. Do you know what I mean? But at least enough. I try. At least enough. You know how it is when you're young, especially. But like at least enough people did. And I always aimed to be trustworthy. But the thing is, when I got to go to Arcade, which was much, you know, it was a bigger job and much more prestigious and higher end clients and everything. And then I moved to New York with that same company when they opened the New York office. And I look back on that time, and I was a senior producer at Arcade Edit, which is a good job, really good job on paper. And a lot of my friends are from that time and clients now and stuff like that. And I'll say to them, I'll be like, I was a terrible producer. And they're like, weren't you a great producer? But like, the thing was, when I look at other people who do that job, like I never loved that job. You know what I mean? Like I was always kind of like, that kind of job is meant for, when you see somebody who is a fit for that job and loves that job, you're like, okay, compare them with me. Now you're seeing who's really good at that job, because they're, you know, it's like there's always this kind of thing. Are you going to be best at what have like a sort of an unnatural skill for than more than other people? Or are you going to be best at what you love?
Right.
I don't quite know the answer to that question, but like I look back at that, you know, my kind of, because I know there's questions about the kind of the career trajectory, and I just think it's like, I did that job because it was the first job I could get, right? And Josie Ann gave me a job, and it was production, good enough, perfect. I didn't have any qualifications. I still don't. So I was just happy to have that job, and then I got an offer for a bigger job, and I was like, hell yeah, and I was still happy. And so then I moved to New York. So this is like 10 years into my career, and I just remember being in New York at the production role, and it's not like it wasn't for me, and I knew it wasn't for me, and I was unhappy. I was unhappy. Do you know what I mean? Like, like, you know, and so but the thing is, the first two qualities still got me that far as senior producer. Yeah. But at that point, my next step in that world would have been executive producer at a post-production company, and then, you know, maybe just start your own production company or something like that. The people who do those roles at the successful companies, like the Scylla Sawyer, who is one of the owners of Arcade Edit, managing director, is a good friend of mine. Like, she is one of the most brilliant and respected people in that industry, and she's just brilliant at that job. I could never go up against her, you know, like, and so, because she's just such a natural passion for that. The thing is, like, that's commercials and stuff. Like, when you get to that higher level, like, you really, then it's like you better be passionate about that, or I think you will reach a ceiling, because the people who just think about that all day and that's their world are just always going to beat you, because you're trying to get out, you know, because it's not your passion. So
and the stakes get higher. I think the higher it gets. You know, what I'm hearing about you is that, you know, you were brave enough to just ask for the thing that you wanted. That's a huge mindset thing. Understanding your core principles within that, though, is what allowed you to fake it until you made it. But then I think stepping away from that and actually looking at yourself honestly and saying, A, I don't love this. B, I know somebody who does love this would run circles around me. Let me get out while I can and find something else.
Yes, but like, and that is 100% correct. But like, to be fair, it's not like these revelations usually come after something unexpected happens. And you're like, oh yeah, it's like, you know, when a relationship ends like that, you're like, I was unhappy. I think that what I just said is true, but I also think it is true. So these days in my role now, I do a lot of kind of like sort of like coaching, and I love being coached, and I love all that kind of dynamic and stuff. And a lot of people, because you know, I'm really interested in people's journeys, and I'm really interested in people's like dreams, and like most people's dreams are like actually more attainable than they realize. It's just, most people, including myself, it's just really hard to know exactly what your dream is. It's hard to interpret it. Like, what do I really want? You know?
What's your dream, Gavin?
That's what I'm just telling you. I don't like. I mean, I have don't know. I have two beautiful kids and a beautiful wife, and that in itself is like a dream come true, and you can't really ask for more in life, if you like, when you think about that, because you're like, I'm definitely super ambitious, and you know, like, and all that kind of stuff. And I figure, like, I want to, you know, I can kind of answer the question, but like, thing is, when you have that, you're kind of like, well, what if everything else went kaput tomorrow? You're like, well, I'm still just blessed with my family, and it's like, you'd find a way to. So that's health, their health, and your health, and all that, because you could move somewhere else and you still have that, you know, and that you could get out of New York and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, maybe just to kind of, I can come around to answer that question. What's my dream? I don't have an answer, but like, I again got lucky, because like, what I was going to say is, I feel like having a dream is important, or at least trying to have a dream, because a lot of people, you know, if people come, let's say to me, and I'm sure everyone has this, they'll be like, yeah, I just like, I want career opportunities, or do you know of any career opportunities? It's like, well, what do you want to do? Well, I don't really know. It's like, well, I mean, that's like, it's a tough place to start. You know what I mean? You're never going to find it. It's like, you know, just like in being relationships, you know, you don't, it's funny because what I was about to say was you'll never find it if you don't know what you're looking for, but sometimes it finds you, right? And then you're like, oh yeah, this is what I wanted. So in my case, I think like, when I was at that position at Arcade, I mean, my boss at the time, Scylla, who I mentioned, she very kindly, I went to her and you know, she didn't be like, you have no future in this, but she was very direct with me saying at that particular company what the timeline was going to be, just because it was a smaller company. And it was, you know, I wanted to move to, not that I'm on the same level as her, but like my next progression would have been to that type of position. She's like, well, I'm here and I'm not leaving. So, which is great. Honesty from people above you, they trust you with that honesty is super, super great.
They say honesty is kindness.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
And so, but the thing is, so from then I started putting it out into the world, right? Like, do you know what I mean? Into just like telling people, you know what, and you don't, people always want to listen about I think nice people want to listen about your hopes and dreams. Your passion, music. Like, I remember around this time I went to Mexico. At the time I was single before I met my wife, and I went to Mexico City, and I was hanging out with a friend of mine there, and we were driving around in the car in Mexico City, and it was just awesome. It was just like, it was just such a good time. And we were, you know, the way you're a new friend group, and they were so interested in my music tastes. I didn't work in the music industry at this time, but like, just I was so into the mariachi music, and was trying to like, and I was just like, they were just like, you're just a music, like, and this, I remember someone said to me, I'll never forget this, they were like, because at the time, because I would have been putting it out into the universe, that I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was at one of those periods, like, this is my job, it's not really my passion, They're like, whatever it is, has to be something to do with music. I remember that person, she said that, it's like, it has to be something. You're like, you were the person just talking about music all the time, and you're like telling me like how great this, oh my God, have you heard this song? You know what I mean? It's like, I don't do that about movies really, or about TV commercials.
They saw you come alive when you talked about music. And thankfully they pointed that out to you. Yeah,
because it's kind of like one of those things, when you get to that, like a level of like mid-seniority, which I mean, I'm still mid-seniority, but like that senior producer at Arcade, it is kind of nice because you do get, like, around that time I would have been like early 30s, I'm 43 now, but like you have more of a choice just because you have some more experience, so you can make a lateral move from your own industry. Like, I also think that's an important thing. It's rarely too late to make a move to a different industry because you bring a lot of skills. Do you know what I mean? Your skills are still your skills.
That's right.
The more senior you get, I noticed this, your skills can become about, like, you know, just your experience and the way you can handle situations and the way you can sort of interpret something and delegate it to the right people and that type of thing. It doesn't mean that necessarily comes with age or experience, but like that is more like, not in every role, but in my role at least.
It's transferable.
It's about like sort of helping a team achieve something rather than, you know, your own thing. So anyway, I feel putting it out into the universe and putting it out into the universe what you kind of want is good, because lo and behold, I went out, you know, we in this industry have, you know, all these client relationships and all this, and so a person who was Sinead Hartman, who is at the time was the head of sync or head of whatever at BMG in production music in LA, and she invited me out for a drink here in New York. And at the time I was like, yeah, sure, why not? I'll go for a drink. Went out, and she was like, well, we're hiring for this role in New York, and it's this role. And I was like, do you know anyone who's the coolest music person around? And the salary was decent, like better than I was on and everything. And I was like, why haven't you considered me for this? She's like, oh, you'd never leave your role as senior producer at Arcade Edit. And I'm like, I would. And she's like, oh, you would? And then, you know, it wasn't like you had the job, because anyone who's been in that situation, and I've been in that kind of situation a few times, like, do you think you're like, I've got the job? No, the interview
that's
starts
ground
then.
zero.
Yeah, it's ground zero.
Of the process,
because that's only one person. You're going to have to convince a lot of people. We all know that. But that's what happened. And I did end up in the music industry, and another one of those situations. I got into sync. Which is very kind of like, I'm like, oh, that's perfect for me, because I am that guy who goes through your CD collection. You know, I love listening to, like, if you look through my phone's audiobooks, it's just like all artists' biographies.
Wow.
You know, and so like I'll be like listening to ABBA biography and just be like for 3 months I'll just be drive my wife like mad, just like listening to every piece of ABBA, and then suddenly I'll just be like off ABBA, but now I'll know the ABBA situation the whole lot. And that's the amazing thing about music. You just kind of like, someone mentioned that like Leon Russell is one. I was like, Leon Russell, I don't actually know much about Leon Russell. Suddenly you're going on like a deep dive in Leon Russell, and there's endless music. So
that was my favorite part about music before it got digital as it is now. That moment when you would get the CD, you'd crack open the package. I mean, I started when we were still doing that with vinyl. And so pulling the vinyl out, unleashing it, looking at the credits, seeing the artwork, like that was a whole experience that I think this day and age, there's a bit of that missing, where now, you know, the digital platforms have started to get, you know, into adding the credits a little bit more so you can find it. But the same tactile experience that we used to have was a special time. Yeah,
and also like you got one record or a CD and it's like you weren't buying like, sometimes you buy 2 or 3 at once, but like you savored it, you know. That's savored it and you listen to it again and again and again and again. And you can
music's become so commoditized now, where before, you had a limited budget. I was talking to, I did a podcast with a music supervisor who's also a DJ, and that was the thing that we were reminiscing about. We used to sit with records for so long, and you knew that album front to back forever. Now we skirt through stuff, and if the song is 2 minutes and 30 seconds long, it's too long. Like we used to listen to 4-minute, 5-minute versions of music, and I mean, it's changed and it's whatever. Yes, things have to evolve, but you know, there was a time when, you know, I can see how that passion for music and the story helped your development in the position that you're in right now. And so it's interesting to see. And I think what I love about even your journey is that, you know, people think that, hey, I want to get into music. I love music. Okay, so does that mean I got to pick up an instrument? Or I have to get a computer and learn how to produce? Or, okay, am I a songwriter now? Having a passion for music isn't always that. I speak to young people all the time because as a composer of music and writing for TV shows and commercials, that's a very specific skill set. But I started out as a hip hop producer and a mix engineer because nobody was paying for hip hop producers when I started. So I had to learn how to mix, which took me into all these other areas of music production. But the cool thing is that there are lots of people who just love music but are not necessarily musically inclined, but they're so valuable into the whole process of music, be it through sync or through
for
you know, the record business. And that's you right now. You know, I talk to kids all the time. They're like, I just know that I love music. Where do I go to school? What do I do? So you didn't go to school for this.
No.
But you scrappily found your way through the industry, and by using your core principles, you've found a way. So, like, talk to me now about your time at BMG, how that evolved, and then how did you become to the position that you're at now?
And it's good. It's the thing about, like, I always joke with my parents about that we had a family piano. So I'm the youngest of 4, and I remember being really young, and my eldest sister, they had a piano for you know, because it's like, you know, I got the first pair, you know, music lessons, the whole lot. In Ireland, interestingly, at least at the school I went to, we didn't have any music class. People will think Ireland, you know, all the, you know, dancing around and shillelaghs and all that, but at least then, the Catholic school that I went to had no music class. They had a piano, my parents, but by the time I came around, I sold the piano, and I always joke with my parents. I'm like, oh, I never had a chance. You'd sold the piano. Like, they're like, oh, you never would have played it anyway. But like, and I do think
boys don't practice piano.
I do think that is like, that kind of goes back to what we were talking about, being like the artists and stuff like that, because, you know, it's not just the kind of like part of the, you know, being an artist, like, I'm not trying to define what an artist is, but like part of it is practicing a lot. It's a lot of hard work.
That's it, honing your craft.
So like, I joke about the piano, but like, I think for whatever reason, because like anyone else, I can pick out a few chords, but I mean, there's nothing stopping me practicing more, but like, you know, but like, I just, you're not compelled to, and that must be something, like maybe that's like a different, like that, maybe that is the difference. But the thing about it is, though, because I hold music and art in such reverence, and almost because I have that kind of like sort of core memory about that piano, and also just like that kind of like, there's something to do with like, you can be an art, can you, like, now it's interesting with AI and stuff like that. It's like, well, everyone's an artist, are they? Because still the true artists are going to stand out. They're the ones who are going to, and so like when I see artists now, when I interact with artists, like as we spoke about all the time, I'm in awe, and I'm kind of intimidated a little bit, because I'm just kind of like, they did it, and I'm like, you do it, and it's kind of like I'm kind of like, oh man, I stand in your shadow a little bit, but because like, and this I'll talk. This leads into my sort of time here at BMG and now at Warner. My job, what I quickly realized when I went to BMG, so my title at BMG was creative director. Director, create. I don't know, something's creative. Something. It's an interesting thing in the music industry. Everybody has a creative in their title. Not everybody, but
it's a creative industry.
It is a creative industry. But the thing is, like, what I would have noticed when I went to BMG is that like there's a lot of artists here, and I'm as much as as I was explaining, I'm very passionate about music, and in certain genres, I would consider myself an expert, or in certain artists. But you're at BMG and Warner, like some of the people who are in the offices around mine, they're probably the foremost experts on music collections, because they work at one of the largest ones. So like I can never go toe to toe with them. So if you're going to speak to the expert at the catalog, I mean, like, I'm going to bring you to see this person. So, and they put the time in and to be experts, in that. So for me, I kind of like realized how I can look artists in the eye, and how I want to be around artists. That's my set,
Awesome.
is by making money for them, and helping them make money. And it's like, that's a very crass way of putting it, but it's really like, it's sort of like, that's something that other people, like, the making money is like the end result, right? But like the first part of that is putting yourself out there, or like, trying to find people who are willing to pay for the thing that you need to be paid for.
And I don't think that's crass. Like, I think you wanting to make artists money, that's the thing that allows them to keep creating. I think that's what our core passion is, because we deal with a lot of artists from our position in, creators making bespoke music for ads, licensing, working with artists that have their catalog and help. Like, nothing brings us more joy than calling the artist, say they picked your track, they picked your song. It's a go, like, it's happening. Like, that feeling never gets old, and that's the thing that's going to allow them to continue creating the next thing. Even I'd go as far as to say that's the thing that's going to inspire them to do the next thing that they do. Because then it feels all of a sudden like it's worth it. Like, it's like, I've been doing the hustle the whole time, I've been grinding, I've been making it for the love and for the passion, but I got to pay my rent. I have children to feed. I would like to go on a vacation. I would like to pay my medical bills, because I don't have an insurance plan being an independent artist. I don't have an insurance plan being a signed artist. Like, what does that even look like? So I get that. And I don't think it's crass at all. The reality is that, musicians, artists, they need money to live. They need money to continue doing the art. And so not everybody can be at the upper echelon of artistry. There's a lot of people from the beginning independent artists all the way up to the stars that we all know and love, and that are, in our everyday scope of attention.
Exactly.
So
exactly. It's not exactly, and it exists. We deal with clients all the time, and like, clients spend money at every single, like, for music at every single budget level, from like, from $10 to $10 million, like, so that I'm not the one to talk about like sort of the future of that and all that kind of stuff, but like the point is that, like, if you were to offer some, like, anyone, like even a lower amount, I'm not like someone who's never got who's looking for any kind of revenue for their art, that's like amount that might not seem so significant to one person is very significant, very, very significant to other people. And that's what's cool. It's exactly what you're saying, like calling someone. I mean, for me, it's about being able to look someone in the eye, you know, and be like, you know, this is why I stand next to you. You're an artist, but I'm like, you know, I have a place here, which is part of this ecosphere, and it is my passion, actually. And the thing is, like, I love finding opportunities. So when I went to BMG, that's what I sort of realized fairly quickly, that like, you know, finding the repertoire, and I told you my experience with my old friend Joe, and so. You know, for me, I didn't really know what I was sort of doing, and I didn't really know what I was supposed to do in terms of like, but like pretty clear is to generate revenue. That's the thing, and revenue, and you take one step back as you generate opportunities, and you take that one step back as you connect with people who have the power to bring you those opportunities. You know, so it's like that kind of process. For me, coming from the world I came from, commercials, like I have a lot of, like, a huge amount of respect for the craft that goes into TV commercials, because like as I told you, that's where I started off. But like, people who don't work in that world, I mean, that's not necessarily true, but like, it should be realized that like, you might think someone's using a stock track on the back end of that spot, but if you've been in the room at 3 a.m. and then going through music options and trying to get the client to sign off on one of those music options, like, they spend a lot of time like looking for that. And if you're watching like a spot done by Wyden and Kennedy for McDonald's on TV or whatever, and you're hearing this, A, they're paying probably paying a good bit of money for it, but like B, they're those creatives, the top level creatives, I mean, any creative, they're creatives, and they're really passionate about that, and they're not just like throwing any track in there. No, it's a lot of. So I think success at BMG was so initially BMG was what's called the production music catalog, which is they kind of expanded now to be kind of like what they call one stop. Like, it was like production music, stock music, boutique sync. There's a lot of terms, one stop, a lot of terms that are the same, but really what it means is it's sort of the part that's not licensing something in a traditional way, where you go to all the different rights holders. It's you're getting it from one entity. That's what's needed for most commercials and stuff like that. They need that kind of, and as you know, they need that kind of music. By valuing that, and valuing the artists who create that, and valuing the creative that goes into the TV commercials, and actually trying to get on the level of, you know, you're doing this Snickers ad and you can barely hear the music in there, but I understand that you're going to need a lot of, you know, this is going to be a process before we get that track, and people are going to see the spot on TV, and they're going to be like, is there even a track there? And you're going to believe it. But if you were working on that job, you know how much people care. So giving it that much respect already gets you there. For me, I'd worked in that industry for so long as a post producer. The company I worked at, Arcade, bless them, they just gave me they were like, just take that. No one asked for my laptop. So my emails, we'd worked there at that point like 6 years. So I was able to just kind of like producing really high end content. So I was able to just go through emails. Hey, it's Gavin, you remember me? I have this new job. Don't really know what I'm doing, but I work at this company called BMG. Like, you license music, we'll hit you up for the next project.
That's
I'm like,
amazing.
Cool. I met, you know, like, this is kind of going back to the competency, you know, but like I met someone, this guy called John Moser, he's not here in New York, but another person who'd be brilliant at this. But I met him at South by Southwest, of all things. We just stood beside each other at one of those music events,
like
Hang the DJ
or something.
The DJ event, and
nice.
And we just were next to each other, and he just got back from Ireland, just coincidentally, and he'd met. That he was on some kind of trip, and he'd met his future wife, Sarah, who, I might be getting the story wrong, but I like this romantic version of it. You know, they met in Ireland. She's not Irish, she's American. Her name's Sarah Moser, and so he was all glowing he's like, oh my God, I love Ireland. Da, 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 da. And we only chatted for about 20 minutes, and then I came back to New York, and it's BMG, and all of a sudden we just get all these music requests from Donor, and I'm like, who's this guy? Oh my God. And so you know, it just sort of like, it's just like another case where it's kind of like, you can get away with a lot by just kind of like doing the thing, but like, and so just success there eventually just led me to a similar thing, just being asked to move over to Warner Chappell Production Music, and then from there to Warner Chappell, which is, Warner Chappell's all kind of under the one roof now, selling the entire catalog for all sorts of clients. So my job being kind of like I keep going back to, and I'm kind of getting to the sort of the biz dev part of it, you know, like the ultimately the benevolency and the trustworthiness, but like the more competent you can be, the better, right?
Sure.
And that's what separates that's what really kind of like, that's, as a post producer, I think my competency level would have been capped, right?
Sure.
And so, who knows in this job, you'd have to speak to the people I work with, but like as you can tell from talking to me, like I love, like I like this kind of what we were talking about, and like making it happen for artists and being part of that world and all that kind of stuff. So like it's I would never speak in these tones about something that like you just believe in it. So like I think what happens is, like as we said earlier on, when you have that level, like like you're asking what the dream is and stuff like that. I don't know. I mean, but I love my job. Well,
there you go. Like maybe the dream is the life that you're living right now. Because when I actually sit here and we talk about your past, and then you start talking about the music, your whole body actually lights up when you talk about it. Yeah. So, and your title is VP of creative. And so I think there's still an aspect of creativity. You have obviously a strong opinion about music, and how are you able to flex that in the job you do today?
Yeah, and let me go back a little bit. There is a huge creative aspect to this job.
Give me that, because I think that's important for the people who are non-musical in the traditional sense of playing an instrument. Tell me about the creativity and that aspect of that on your current position, because I think that's important.
Yeah, so the thing is, if someone's going to, so what I do is sync licensing, and what my team does is sync licensing, and I'm part of the greater Warner Chappell sync licensing team. If you're someone an editor or a creative director or whoever is about to look for some music, now, essentially the sync catalog is like a big store, right? So you walk to the entrance of the store and you're met with someone at the door, and they're like, hey, welcome to the store. Can I help you find anything today? Instinctively, for me, in most cases, I'm like, I'm good, because I'm probably like, who's this person? Why are they coming at me? They don't know anything about me. They don't know my music taste. I know what I'm looking for. If it was a clothing store, I'd probably be the same, that kind of way. Instinctively, I'm just like, get away from me.
Great analogy.
Yeah, and then like after a few minutes though in the store, depending, now you might be just looking to browse that day. Now, there was a time in my life I would be browsing in record stores. I don't really do that much anymore because I don't really have time for that. And if you take the clothing store analogy, depending on the day, if I'm on holidays or whatever, I might just wander around the store. But usually these days I'm running in, I need like a new pair of pants or a shirt or whatever. So if that person greets me at the door, like often what happens is I'm like, but then 5 minutes later, like, where are they? I'm like, where are the shoes? Now, if that person is kind of like, they're on 4th floor, that's great. But like maybe you get up to the 4th floor or maybe on that particular day, you're like, I'm starting a new job on Monday and I need some stuff. So like, all right, come with me. What size are you? Large, like next size? They got the tape out, they're measuring you. Like, sit right there for a second. They come back with stuff like, that's actually might work. We try that on. Suddenly, for me, every shopper has a different experience and a different day, but suddenly you're having a great time, right? And that's a great experience. Now, that person who's bringing you stuff in the music world, like if first thing they bring you is just totally off, you're like, well, that's the wrong size. It's not I mean, you're like, thank you very much. I'm just gonna go look myself now, So a huge part of so I don't know what the exact number is on this, but the vast majority, I would say, of the vast Warner Chappell music catalog has never seen any sync licensing revenue. And you're talking current stuff that's coming out by our, like one of the best repertoires of artists in the world, and you're talking about archival stuff going back forever. That just, it's like one of those things. It's like if you walk into that shop, this shop analogy, you're going to only be able to buy the stuff that's on display, right? And in the music world, there's an interesting kind of like extra aspect to that, which is that like, because of the way music licensing rights work, you don't really know what's for sale, right? Some stuff like stock music and production music, royalty-free music, that's for sale, although you're not quite sure how much it will cost. And then there's other stuff that is for sale, but you've no idea how much it costs. And then there's other stuff that might not be for sale, like like Grateful Dead is a great example. They
don't license their music.
They don't license music, but I mean, that goes back to, I didn't really listen to Grateful Dead until I started Warner Chappell, and now I'm like, I'm on the bus, let's put it that way. But like, but like Volkswagen, you know, I was like, Volkswagen, the bus, they're doing the electric version, which is true. And I'm like, trucking, Super Bowl, epic, you know, and like people who I work with who are the true, you know, who know more about this stuff than I do, they're like, no,
it's not gonna happen.
It's not gonna happen. I'm like, oh my God. But like, the thing is, that's the Grateful Dead, but there's a ton of iconic, amazing songs by iconic artists who, many of which will, you know, it'd be managed by the estate or whatever. And so, and then there's new artists who are not seeing sync revenue, and then there's stuff that is seeing sync revenue. It's great. So my point is curation is massive. And even just like sorting stuff out. I mean, I don't know how much music Warner Chappell has, but a lot, you know, a lot.
Yeah.
And a lot of it hasn't even been digitized. Like a lot of it.
That was my next question. Like, how do you even go through a catalog that massive? If I come to you, and here's where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
As a person in my position, we're a music house. We go in and we deal directly with the agency. Sometimes I'm calling you because what the client is looking for, I have a certain amount of things in my own repertoire. We have things that we can curate that's bespoke, that we write ourselves as brand new. Or it's like, okay, you know what? We need to check all of these tiers.
Of course.
I need to find records that are needle drops, which are, you know, something that's in the catalog that exists. Maybe it's something that's archival. Maybe it's a brand new artist, because we're still exploring on what the best thing is for this particular.
Your job is to satisfy the project's needs.
That's right. But I need to find it quickly. So when you have, you know, the whole myriad of choices on a place like that, how do you get through it before it even comes to me to then go through it again to then present to the agency?
Yeah.
There's just so much.
So much. There's a lot of music companies. Warner Chappell, yes, is one of the larger ones, but same challenge. I mean, there's ones larger than us, and you know, so it's a hugely competitive landscape, as we know. But there is also like kind of an infinite amount of content too. There's like this virtually limitless amount of content and kind of an infinite amount of music. It's like a wash with stuff. So to answer your question, like it's kind of relevant to currently, because I think now this is, you know, my view as I still kind of consider myself as coming in from the outside. You know, if you're working on a commercial, or you're working on a TV or show or whatever, you're kind of like, why isn't there just price tags on everything on Spotify for sync? You know what I mean? Why can't I just know that I can sync this for, like, we know why there isn't, because it's too complicated in the licensing, but like in a perfect world,
sure,
right? That would benefit artists. That would just create an equitable marketplace. You'd be like, oh yeah, I want this one that costs 50K. Boom, there, done. You have it. And you
add to cart.
Add to cart. Yeah. So why, like, again, this is just my kind of like feeling on this is like, so at a company like Warner Chappell, and I'm sure this is like just music industry in general, there's a lot of, at Warner Music Group, there's a lot of fragmentation going on, right? So it's like, oh, do you want to license a song? Well, we have 20%, but you're going to have to go and get the other 20%. Now, that some of those other percentages might be owned by people just right down the hallway or on a different floor, but also they could be in it, like, you know, it is, I'm not saying it's not complicated, it is complicated.
Right.
But there's previously, I don't think there would have been a huge incentive to make it uncomplicated, because if you come to me and I have 20% of something and I'm like, well, I'm going to need like, you know, X amount for my 20%. Now you have to go and do the work and get that X amount, and someone else says, well, actually I want double that amount, then I get to get, because it's probably the fact that you got to come back to me and give me that double amount as well. So it actually, I think previously with a smaller amount of content, it would have helped. It was helpful to have it kept the prices up basically by keeping it fragmented.
Oh, I see.
But now, because even, you know, there's always been a ton of music, right? But there wasn't always a ton of content.
Right.
So now you've got a ton of content. So it's like, no, actually all that music you have, Warner Chappell, get it out there. We need it, you know?
Yeah.
And so the reason, so Warner Chappell has one of the, you know, arguably one of the best, production music catalogs around. Production music is one of those terms which is essentially means one stop. You can get it from one place. But production music, like having worked in the music industry a while now, it's like people who work in these, you don't want, like they are the people who work on production music libraries, they're truly, this is a section of the thing which should not be, you know, underrated. It's like really like incredible musicians, and Warner Chappell Production Music itself has insane studios, historic studios in Nashville and LA that are like, and the studio teams there, arguably some of the best studio musicians in the country. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're the Warner Chappells. Yeah. So that in itself would have filled part of the need for production music. Now for production music, stock music. Now there's an argument to say, like, do people use that type of music because it's easy, because it's cheap, or because it's creatively right? Now, it's hard to say. I would argue it's a bit of all three, right? Like, sometimes,
I would say that.
Sometimes you use a certain thing because it's just right there, but sometimes that score, that perfect score you were describing, like, you know, if you were looking for a authentic cinematic score from the 50s, I mean, you can't create that. You're gonna, but
you can, but it'd be very expensive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the production
and a lot of it, I think, has to do with time. There's not enough time to score it out, get it approved, then go and have an orchestra play it, record it, mix it. Sometimes there's just not enough time. So production music saves your butt when it's like, okay, I need it to feel like this for this small radio campaign. I need it to feel like 50s throwback for the joke, but I don't have the budget to bring in a real, you know, orchestra, you know, Glenn Miller style orchestra for this one funny bit in a spot. So yeah, there's definitely a place for production music.
You get something that's already made. And
you want it to be good and authentic. So yes, there's definitely a place for that.
There's a place for everything.
You know, I think stock music got a bad rap at one point because there was a time when, you know, elevator music was created. Which elevator music became a genre.
It's a genre. That's the thing about music. That's what I was saying about the news music.
That's
like I just, because it's fresh in my mind, because I saw we did a really cool throwback video, because Warner Chappell, that production music catalog I'm referencing is really like legendary in that news music genre. Like, you know, news music nerds know all about that. So it's kind of funny. But
I'm Kermit the Frog.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So the thing is, though, like, I think what the goal now for Warner Chappell, and what for I would imagine for a lot of, so previously it was fragmented, I would argue kind of on purpose. So there was no incentive, let's put it this way, there was no incentive to sort out all these rights, because you'd be like, yes, but, you know, now, because Warner Chappell, using that example, has a ton of some of the best music in the world, and it needs to be available to be synced, but in order for it to be available to be synced, the rights need to be worked out, you know. And in order for that to be done, there has to be an incentive to do it, and that's happening big time. And that's like, this is the
digital aspect of it making it easier to do that?
Yes.
Is AI the thing that's helping bring that together?
Sorry, I think I misunderstood you. I don't like. I think what I thought you meant is, like, you know, again, this is like kind of like that. This is all sort of my feeling on it, is that, like, TikTok and stuff like that, they have a commercial music library that if you're, you know, a brand and you want to use a famous song, and there's like ABBA, for example, I don't know, I'm pretty sure they're in that TikTok, like, because I think they can control their own rights. I don't know the ins and outs.
Like a re-recording or something.
Well, I think it could be the original ABBA versions, because ABBA
own the rights.
Yeah,
to
and
stuff.
I don't even have TikTok, but like, my wife, because I'm in this ABBA, like, I was just gonna like listen to a lot of ABBA, so I'm all ABBA. But you've
done the deep dive.
Yeah, and so, like, one of their songs, "Slipping Through My Fingers," that one, my wife was like, I know that song, that's on my TikTok all the time. And so I was kind of like figuring it out. It's like, why does that get into TikTok's commercial music library? Because to put it in there, all the rights have to be cleared, so someone can just grab it without any further permission, you know, because that's the whole point. They can just, it's in there, pay the fee, take it and use it, right? So Warner and everyone else obviously kind of want your music in there, right? So it has to be cleared. So a lot of music was cleared for that and is cleared for that, but wouldn't have been cleared for ads. So and what, like, I have this, like, thought that everything, like, so I think the biggest barrier for artists to make money from sync, like I described earlier, there's like almost endless amount of content that needs music. And so you've got this virtually infinite amount of music. So the problem is, it's people often say money would be the biggest decision maker, but it's you nailed it earlier on. It's time. In fact, it's both. Both of those things are logistics.
Yeah,
it's logistics.
Yeah.
That is the biggest hurdle that faces in order for any company to kind of like, because the music is all there, bursting at the seams with music, the best, like, you know, so. And there's a need for it, and like if someone has 20K to spend or 30, they want to get the best they can get. If you've $10 to get like a beer, you want to get the best. You want to spend it as well as you can. So if you've got $1 million, you want to spend it. Like David Bowie is Warner Chappell Music. We have the publishing. And again, other people are much more experts in like the mechanisms of how that works. But the way I look at it is that can be a one-stop clearance. And so if you come to the production music catalog, it depends. You might have a subscription, you've paid ahead. But like if you go to, you know, APM, Warner Chappell, Universal, or, you know, even like So Stereo, or any of these sync music companies, that your company, and you find this on their website, and you're like, yeah, we've got 50K, I should be able to get that. No guarantee. You could find something. I mean, I found myself in a situation before where, you know how to, like, I'm not a music supervisor really, but like sometimes I get roped in with friends, and like, so someone had a song that they found on Spotify, and it was like, had like 800 listens or whatever, and it was some guy in Germany, and they had like, I think they had like, it was a Mazda commercial, and they had like 20-30K or something like that, and they were like, could you just track it down? No, one person dug their heels in because I guess they didn't need the money. And they're like, no, we're going to need like, and it was just kind of like, it just tells you, like, I think part of the reason was as well, like, you know, we probably would have been able to figure it out in the end, but like it's logistics. Like this person was in Germany. Even if another time I can remember another song that someone was about to use, and everybody was just kind of like, there was a certain fee for it that was decent, and the artist themselves, who is a really great artist, but wouldn't be like a really super well-known artist, and there was a song, and everyone, like the music supervisor who I was dealing with, just kept coming back to me. He's like, man, everyone loves this song. Are you sure this song is fully owned by that? It's just, there's something about this song. And I'm like, go back to the guys, I'm like, are you sure? And there's no samples on it. It's all you. You wrote this, all me. So we going through the process, and everyone's checking, and I'm doing all the checking because I don't know. Something they tell me it's not. They tell me it's not. And eventually I get a call from the artist. He's like, I just remembered something. I actually did use a sample out. And the whole bit, because everyone was like, that song just has such a feel. It has such a feel. And it turns out he was using, I don't know which song it was, but it was a Diana Ross and the Supreme song.
Oh, no.
And he was using like a sample right through the whole thing. Like it was like basically the rhythm section, I guess. And it was kind of like, no wonder it had that feel. So like the thing is,
that's a logistical
it's nightmare. A logistic nightmare. And so like, I'm like, you know, I bring it all the way back to where you started, like, do I interact with artists like all the time? And that's the thing, artists, you know, they're on every level. So that to the Bowie catalog, you know, yeah, I say, well, it is just like a stock music track, because if you come along, it's like, okay, well, if they come along with, I don't know how much, and it's like, what are you, okay, can't be used maybe on a nicotine or whatever, the other restrictions as specified by whoever needs to specify that. But ultimately, if you tick all those boxes and you come up with the cash,
you can have the song.
You can have it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's the same for the Grateful Dead, and I'm not sure if that's the case for David Bowie either. This is kind of like
it's a case-by-case basis.
It's a case-by-case.
But that's what you help manage. That's what you and your team help manage and help brands figure out.
Certainly for there's artists, songs, it's generally like really the market like drives, you know, like there's another, I love the analogies, you know, but if you walk into like a car showroom or anything, and you'll have like the sports car there, you know, and you'll have like this big massive tank or whatever, but like the ones people are buying are the sedans in the middle. And the music industry, I think for us, what that means is like there's a you know, like Warner Chappell has a lot of like Ferraris and Lamborghinis and stuff like that, but like, and they get used sometimes, and it's amazing. Like there's a Led Zeppelin track for the Super Bowl recently, which is a huge fanfare, and it's is incredible. but the majority of syncs come in that like kind of like probably 10K to 80K range.
Yeah.
And that is where the big opportunity, because there's a threshold, a logistics threshold. It's a weird music industry, like sync industry analogy, whereas the more money you have, the harder it is to license a track. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if you only have, like, we only have $100 straight to the worst, like, I mean, straight to the stock site.
Yeah.
No brainer. Don't think about this too much. $100 spent.
Yeah.
But but there's a threshold, because if you have $1 million, then that's actually not too hard either. You hire a music supervisor and they just, that's fun.
Yeah.
But if you've got 30K, you're not getting a music supervisor. You're not going to a major label. I mean, this is what we're talking about. We hope to change that. But previously, you would have been going to, the labels, because they'd be like, oh, you can't do anything with that, that we'll take that for our 10% or maybe our 5% or whatever. So, it's just like but these labels and all companies have tons of great music that they will be like, they would be absolutely, the artist, would be absolutely tickled pink to get that money, and can be life changing, and there's loads of that, and creatives on the other hand, they're looking for the best stuff. Right. They're looking for the best stuff, the best bang for their buck. So the win for everyone involves in kind of like finding a solve for that too, and that's at Warner Chappell Music. That is what we're doing, and it's just a really exciting time to be there, and it's a really exciting thing to be part of, because it's just like opens up so much revenue streams for artists, and it's like when you're talking to creatives, as I do all day, in terms of like ad agency creatives and stuff like that, it's just like they're like, why can't I? It's like, well, actually check out the Spotify list, and it's like you wouldn't believe what you can get for your budget. It's like that brings me back to like when you're looking through the CD collection, you know what I mean? You're like, you're like, man, that's that 30K, 40K, actually, when you've got the whole thing wide open to you. Yeah. You look through your list, you're like, that is available? Yeah. Like, I mean, it's never been synced before. That's incredible. Yeah, so.
I really admire your passion for this, not just for the music, but for the people creating the music.
For sure.
I think that's awesome. I love your analogies. The car one's fantastic. Sometimes you want to take the Ferrari out, and he's like, you want everybody to see you in the Ferrari. So like, that's a great opportunity for agencies and creatives at the agencies to live in that world. It's like, sometimes we need to take the sedan out, but every so often with the right project, we need to take the Ferrari out or the Lamborghini.
Absolutely.
It's amazing.
Sometimes you're taking a bike.
Sometimes you're taking the bike.
One of those little scooters.
Yeah, it's a scooter. That's great. I think if you could go back now and like just think about that one big win that you had in your position now. Yeah. What's the first one that stands out to you, and this was the moment that really, this is what it's all about for me?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I know like a few years ago, just before I was at Warner Chappell, there was, and we've kind of covered this already, but there was an instance of somebody who, as just happens in the music industry, sometimes there's in for sync, is that like, sometimes clients, I probably could try and explain it, but sometimes clients just have money that they seem to just want to spend on something. And you're kind of like, they don't want to quote or anything, how it is. They're just like, we got this, and you're kind of like, okay. And this particular one was quite a bit of money, and the artist, I won't say his name but like he's in Texas, and like a gigging artist, and kind of a country rock kind of thing, and
he was saying no.
No, he was saying yes, and well, I didn't, because I was like, no, just like, I don't need any, like, that's my job, and I was just happy for him, but I just remember he emailed me, and through the person who would have dealt with him, I was made very, very clear that huge impact on that, and that had on the person who was a gigging musician in Texas, and was, like kind of at the end of sort of like, just not making any money, and kind of like, had a family to support. And I think like just out of nowhere, he got like, a large 5-figure check, that like, just probably like, that just gives me another year, 2 years to just keep doing this. Imagine. And so he was like that person, that is really cool. I think though, like, what I find in my current job, we have a lot, like, I'm so fortunate to work at a big company and a great company, and we have like just an unbelievable music collection. And the more we open it up, the more we just never have to say we it's just we have something for everyone, and it's great.
Wow.
So the my focus more and more tends to be in the people I work with. I love sort of coaching, and I love kind of like helping people, like finding out what people's like passions and dreams are, where they want to be, and all that. So I think like where I see kind of like the big wins and the big passion is around that. I can think of like people, like team members who, I have this sort of thing where you're supposed to enjoy your job. You're supposed to enjoy things. I'm not saying I'm happy every day, and I don't even know if I'm happy today. You know what I mean? But like. It's supposed to be fun, do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, if you're not having fun, what are you doing? And it doesn't mean that's fun every single second.
Day. Yeah.
But like, I think, music industry especially, like we all, like, I'm very fortunate, I'm very privileged in so many ways, but it's a passion, you know what I mean? And so particularly because of that, it's supposed to be fun. And if it's not fun, like, then it's like, so like, it's a lot of the time, I think a lot of the time, so I know like with some people on the team, and I manage people, and which I just love doing, and that people have anxieties, scary, what they call it, like scary Sunday, because like someone's like, oh, I had the scary Sunday. What's a scary Sunday? Okay. Like that means I don't want to come to work on Monday. Like you're just anxious about work on Monday, and I know there's lots of reasons for that, but I'm like, nah, I mean, music's supposed to be fun, right? You're supposed to be listening to music all day. It's supposed to be fun. So like, it is a business. We work at a public company. Warner Music Group is a public listed company. It's a revenue generating entity. Yeah. That's what this was there for. And you can be reminded of that a lot, and that can kind of be like, I remember when I walked into BMG, I was surprised because BMG is an awesome company and I loved it there, but like, it was more kind of like, I was like music industry, I was like, this is going to be just like a good time. But it was more bank-like than anything else. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is very quiet. People are very quiet. And I think like people can sometimes forget that it's music industry, guys. Yeah. And then so just seeing, I would have been someone who would have shied away from managing people before, because I like kind of being like solo and stuff like that, and be able to do my own thing. But seeing people's sort of transformation in that way is really, 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 really fun. And then the other part of it is like the clients we work with, and every, like, music is supposed to be fun for them too. And especially, with these like with budgets, and like all the stuff we've just talked about, a lot of the projects are kind of like a lot of clients that come to me are like, oh, we just don't have budget, and they have this budget anxiety. If you're a producer at an ad agency, if you're like on a team at an ad agency, like, it's funny, especially when you go down, in this case, when you go down to the lower level, it becomes less fun, because you're digging through stock catalogs or whatever. Sure. Even when you might have a, respectable enough, like, it's probably the least fun when you have like 20 or 30K, right? Because the expectations from creatives, like, that's a lot of money. It is a lot of money. Sure. And so you should be able to get something really cool, but then you're out there trying to like, so it can be a grind. Music supervision, which I told you earlier, I delved like, so what, I just try to remind people, and we try to remind people, is like, this is supposed to be, if you're doing a project, music's supposed to be the fun part. That's it's the funnest part. You get, like, especially if you're not a musician, for sure, if you are a musician, but like, if you're not a musician and you get to, like, imagine you're a creative director or an editor or whatever, you get to sit there going like, nah, I like that one, I like that one, I like that one, this one's good, and you get to behind it, and so you get to make a choice right there. Yeah. And I think that's, like, I loved like putting, or back when I was working in post, like, it would always be fun to just put different music against commercials, with commercials especially.
Best part of my day.
It's just kind of like, they all work. Yeah. And they change the commercial.
For different reasons.
That's it. And you're kind of like, oh, because it just changed. That's a lot of fun. I think like like, I suppose this is maybe another part of it, which is like connected, but the same thing. It's like, it's fun. The music tracks are like kind of like character actors, and you have, they're like actors, right? But you have like the superstars like the Tom Cruises, and you can put them in anything. Like, you know, Coke spot, put the Tom, like, or, you know, put Tom Cruise in it. We're good. Put you know, Brad Pitt, and put you know, whoever, like, in it, because they're a star. They carry that, and there's music like that through Led Zeppelin and stuff. And that's and there, you know, there's not a whole ton of them. But then you've got all these character actors. You know, you got your Steve Buscemi's, and you've got like people who, like, your one Flo in those Progressive commercials. Like, I love that for her, because like, she, you know, for the tracks, and like, I think especially for commercials, the creatives are always looking for something that makes you raise your like, the commercials are on, you're reading on your phone or whatever, and they're looking for something that makes you look up. And to me, that means some kind of an unusual sound. You know what I mean? Something unusual. But the tracks are kind of like, they're like character actors. Do you know what I mean? They're not right. They're not. Right,
sometimes the star is born from the thing that you've brought to the table, rather than the star already being there. And when you can see, you know, the world respond to something brand new like that, and that becomes the new star, that's a special moment.
It's special.
And you know, it really does, honestly, Gavin, it says a lot about you. Like, I asked you what was your greatest moment in a career that has had you meet Paul McCartney, and rather than go back to that, the biggest moment for you was realizing that you turned this poor musician's life around in a moment when it was his lowest. Like, that says a lot about you. And then even talking about wanting to help people along the way, and coming with benevolence and trustworthiness, and, you know, being on time, you know, like those things, like those are all, you know, when we talk about this podcast anyways, we're talking about not just the media, that's all fun, but it's the mindset that's gone with it. So it's very fitting that the things that are now kind of making you tick are the things that are more special and more near and dear. And I think the humanity part of the music has really locked you in. So, man, I really appreciate you coming in and sharing, you know, your journey.
Thanks, Tyson.
I love hearing your passion for music. Maybe you are doing the exact thing that you're supposed to be doing and living that dream. And I think it's just expanded in that you're allowing other people to live their dreams, and in some cases making dreams come true. So
thank you,
dude. Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on such short notice. Dude, this was incredible.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was awesome. Great question.